Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What's going on, Internet? Eric Van Holtz back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. I hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the desk from me is Clark with the Golden Ratio.
Howdy. Good to be here, Eric.
Yeah, I'm excited to get in and talk about your business. But before we get in, I don't think I've ever promoted the show before.
Really?
Yeah, I've never told anyone to write a review or do any stars, anything like that.
Well, let me be the first to tell your audience that they should write a review and leave 5 stars.
Yeah, I leave 5 stars.
Yeah.
If you're going to leave less than 5 stars, don't write a review.
That's a good plan. Yeah, if you are not thinking it's a 5-star show, you should probably buy some beard brand and put it on your face and look in the mirror and ask some existential questions. What are you doing here? And then come back to that review and see if it's not 5 stars.
Yeah, share the show. Have some fun. Golden Ratio. That's like a photograph thing, right?
Yes, we did not make up the golden ratio. That has been around. We actually just discovered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it applies to the products you make too, right?
Yes, it does. Yeah. We want to be the golden ratio between you, your morning, and your caffeine. And the golden ratio, if you just Google golden ratio, you'll see it's actually like the most common tattoo in the world, but it's got this really beautiful natural aesthetic. The number is 1.610803 repeating. It's a number kind of like pi. It's endless. And, if you plot it down, it makes this beautiful spiral that you can map the cosmos with. You can see really funny pictures on Google Images. If you just type golden ratio, you get people mapping Donald Trump's posture to the golden ratio. All sorts of funny stuff. But yeah, it's a natural phenomenon, and we are grateful that we get to promote gold coffee through our brand Golden Ratio, and that was available for us to name the company around.
So for those who don't know, Clark makes Golden Ratio coffee. It's a lightly roasted coffee that's in tea bags.
Yep.
That doesn't have the same acidity or bite that coffee will, and isn't as I'm not a tea drinker, so it doesn't have that same kind of tea-like.
Yes, aka it's not weak.
Yeah.
It packs a caffeine punch.
Yeah, but your packaging is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
It's just stunning. The fonts you chose, the color. Walk me through how you came up with the brand and the process for that.
Yeah, and thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
And it definitely helped that we could start with a naturally beautiful aesthetic, and the golden ratio already is that. People who know most about the golden ratio are typically architects or photographers, and so it's something they use to make things aesthetically wonderful. And so we were grateful we got to start with that blank canvas to create our brand around. And so our packaging uses variations of different circles. If you just type golden ratio coffee in Google, you can see the packaging. And so that was definitely inspired by what the golden ratio already is. And for us, the brand really was born out of a desire to help people just feel good every day. And so I had trouble drinking regular coffee. I used to be a full-time touring musician and traveling around the United States, playing rock bands, drinking rural gas station Pennsylvania coffee, drinking Starbucks town to town in the van. Ultimately just wrecked my stomach, and I had to stop drinking coffee altogether. And it was because of coffee's acidity. It just really hurt my stomach. And so I discovered this really low roast coffee in the Pacific Northwest that had gotten really popular, and it's coffee that didn't hurt my stomach. And so I was back in Texas after trying this coffee and asking people in coffee shops, people who own different coffee companies, hey, what do you think about this new kind of coffee? Nobody had ever heard of it. And I thought, wow, this is really strange, because this is like a really valid and delicious, wonderful kind of coffee that's really popular in the Seattle area, which is kind of like the forefront of things coffee. And yet in Texas or in California, New York, nobody had really ever heard of it. And so that was kind of the call entrepreneurially that I took. So I was like, okay, well, screw it, let's do it. If it's, to be, why not me? So, started the brand just to really give more people the access to this really low roast coffee, because it solves such a big problem with me. I figured it would, help solve a big problem with other people. And then, the Gold Coffee name just kind of already has some, really positive and premium affiliations. Feel golden, stay golden, start your day the golden way. We started having a lot of fun from like a branding perspective of where we could take it. And then I'm just kind of a creative and easily excitable guy that likes to feel good every day. And so, what you see today on our brand is kind of the sum of lots of creative brainstorms and excitement around, hey, how do we get people excited about drinking this new kind of coffee and kind of mixing up their daily routine in a way that's going to serve them better, and then it's not going to hurt their stomach, it's not going to stain their teeth brown. They don't need to add any cream or sugar to make it palatable. Like 2/3 of people who drink coffee every day put cream or sugar in their coffee because they don't like how coffee tastes, which is like a really ironic thing we discovered because coffee is the second most consumed beverage in the United States behind water. So you have, second most consumed beverage that 2/3 of people who drink it don't even like how it tastes. And so the coffee category is just a really fun one to play in with lots of ironies like that. And so, so that's kind of where we saw the position in the market for this product and launched it last year.
It's funny you mentioned this, and I think this is going to be a good takeaway for people who are listening who haven't started a business yet. When I lived in Spokane, Washington, I remember my business partner, she told me about it. She called it white coffee, or I think that's what they call it up in the Northwest.
Exactly.
And this would have been like 2011, 2012, because she knew I was into coffee. And, so this was essentially 8 years later that you've been able to find a market for a product that has existed.
Yeah.
And it's purely that action that you decided to take to go. So how come you decided to go the route of like tea bags versus like a ground up coffee or a traditional coffee bean?
Yeah, great question. When you pick something like coffee to create a business in, you find that there are many ways that people like to put caffeine in their body.
Just straight into the veins.
Exactly. Yeah. If we just sold IV bags of gold coffee, there'd probably be a market for that too. Just put it straight in my bloodstream. But more realistically put us at a decision point where we said, okay, do we just sell ground beans? Do we sell cans of coffee? Do we just go for food service and try to sell into coffee shops? Do we do pour over? And we found this tea bag format was really interesting. And we initially were cold brewing this, and the tea bags that we sell are amazing for cold brewing it because you don't need any additional equipment. You just need water and time. So if you want to drink like a chai spiced golden ratio coffee tomorrow, cold brew, all you need to do is take one of our tea bags or chai spiced ones, drop it in 8 ounces of water, let it steep while you sleep. Woo, wake up, you turn water into gold. So that was kind of initially why we picked the tea bag. The other thing about it was from doing a lot of early focus groups with people, which we did, and some of our investors, a guy named Noah Kagan who lives here in Austin, a couple other people said, yeah, for sure, you can come to our office and give our employees free coffee and we'll give you feedback. That's no brainer. So I brought early versions of our roast to their offices and got feedback. And one of the number one things that we got feedback on is that it tastes a lot more like tea, but it's coffee, and it would kind of divide the room and pose this interesting question of, is this coffee for tea people or is this tea for coffee people? And from a packaging format perspective, I knew that it didn't really matter what their answer was because they just associated it with tea. And if we put it in a format that was more like tea, they would kind of subconsciously be able to adopt it easier. And the difference between me bringing like a bag of coffee to somebody and being like, hey, brew this, versus me bringing like a tea bag of our coffee and saying brew this, our hate rate dropped to nearly zero. Where whenever we just did like bags of coffee, it was like 1 in 6 people were like, I effing hate this. Exact same product, putting in a tea bag, we had 0 out of 100 people hate it.
Yeah.
The difference is that we just kind of aligned more with their subconscious expectations. And whenever we gave people a bag of coffee, and even if we just had regular coffee, I also learned that if I gave 100 people a bag of coffee, they would go and brew it 100 different ways. Some people would do their Chemex, some people would do a French press, some people would do cold brew, some people do a Mr. Drip machine. Some people would let it sit for 6 months and then they'd brew it. I mean, there's all sorts of different experiences people would have. And so when we took those options away and we just made it very simple with the tea bag, people had a lot more consistent experience. And whenever you're creating a new thing, I think it's really important to minimize the hate you receive just because you're building this love fest that is a business between you and your customers. And it's easier to do that without, a lot of protesters like standing in the crowd of the people you're serving. And so, yeah, it's gone, well for us being in the tea bags. We actually did decide that we're launching our ground coffee bags in November. So we're going to start selling those. We've had lots of customers ask, and I don't know if it was the best decision to go with the tea bags at the very beginning. I mean, it definitely led to like easier product experiences for people, while at the same time, it's a format that often is new for people. And it's, enough to introduce one new thing to people. Maybe it's too much to try to introduce 2 new things to people. In our case, that's the gold coffee, that's novel to them. And then additionally, we have this tea bag format, which is also novel to them. So we're going to scale that back and just offer one differentiation, which is just the ground coffee bags. And so, yeah, we'll see how that goes. We've got, a lot of folks asking for it. Already have like over 11,000 people, opted in to receive it in November. So yeah, so that'll be exciting. We might find out in 6 months the whole tea bag thing was a just a waste of time. But so
Yeah.
far, so good. And the product's amazing, and definitely hope to not see it die.
Yeah. Well, a couple things that you said. You kind of mentioned 6 months. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, like maintaining product consistency. And this is something that does have a shelf life. And
Yeah.
how do you,
Ground coffee doesn't.
ground coffee doesn't have one?
Well, it kind of does, but with our tea bags, they're all sealed to be fresh for a year, and they're nitro flushed, and so the oxygen's taken out of the bag, so it doesn't oxidize and it stays fresh. Or ground coffee bags, if you're just gonna buy this from any coffee company, including us or somebody else, that's not gonna be nitro flushed, and so that actually has like a ticking clock that's going pretty quickly. Kind of the rule of thumb with high end coffees, is you want to drink it like 14 days after it's been roasted, like that's like the prime freshness. And in CPG, it's optimized, like the whole industry, and think of like anything you'd buy at Whole Foods or online. Those products and the sellers of those products really want the most amount of shelf life possible. So that way they're not stuck in a situation where, half the inventory went bad and they just throw it away and it's a waste for everybody. And so switching to selling the ground coffee bags is interesting because from like a cash conversion cycle, it's a lot faster because the products we're making, we intend to sell very quickly because we want to make sure we deliver it to customers like within, a week of it being roasted, which is very different than our CPG products, which are our fulfillment center and our manufacturer and our other people that are selling them. It might take a week after it's been produced to even show up in our fulfillment center's system where we could even start selling that product. And by the time it shows up at the customer's door, it might be like on day 14 post roast. That'd be like a best case scenario from a timeline, which means that we're outside of the optimal freshness. And so there's two very different DNAs between like selling CPG products, which are more in line with what you buy at a grocery store, and then selling specifically coffee products, just because the demand for speed is so much higher when you're doing like a really fresh product like a coffee.
Yeah. So you've been in business for about a year, a little over a year. You've grown primarily through direct to consumer?
Yep.
Ad spend, Facebook ads?
Yep.
What is the long-term vision? Is it continue to grow to be a mega direct to consumer, or do you want to go through all the channels?
Yeah, good question. So with a brand like ours, and because coffee is something that people will purchase any opportunity they get if they really love the coffee, and we definitely have vision to be in multiple channels. But the way I talk about it to my team, our investors, and really try to think about it myself, is everything in time, one step at a time. So, in 10 years, I could see us being in every type of channel and having ready to drink, having cans of our products. But if we try to do all that today, it would just be, we'd starve ourselves out by trying to do too many things. And so it's so much about focus. I mean, probably at every stage, but especially at this stage when there are, 10 reasons that you'll die and like maybe one reason you'll succeed. Okay, well, at the very beginning, just focus on that one thing, everything in your organization around that one thing that's going to get you to the next stage. And then you get to that next stage and okay, now there's maybe only like 7 things that'll kill us and 2 things that are, looking like if we nail them, we'll win. And so, our business now, I think we're probably like stage 2 or 3 where, okay, we've got some traction, we got some product market fit. We've got several customers who've already spent over $1,000 in our store and, in a year of being in business. So we found a really meaningful place in tons of people's mornings, like in all 50 states. Now the game is just get out of our own way to keep serving them and then systematically adding to what we're doing operationally in a way that doesn't, kind of break us too quickly, which that's one of the hard parts about being in coffee is we could make a can, we could sell the ground beans, we could sell the whole beans, we could do tea bag stuff, we could venture into like pour over stuff. And before you know it, we have like 27 different SKUs and, our business is not big enough to justify that much kind of product development and operational muscle just yet. And so striking that balance is not something I claim to have mastered, but it's something I at least consider while we're making our decisions.
Well, you're wise beyond your years because those are all the mistakes that Beard Brand made. It was just trying to do everything for everyone. We had European fulfillment. We've got like 120 SKUs now. It's just a lot of stuff to do. So the deeper penetration you can get with like single SKUs, the better. So you keep on that focus as long as you can. And I know it's hard for entrepreneurs.
Oh, for sure. And from a creative standpoint too, like I thought about this a lot as a musician. Musicians are quote unquote creative class, creative professionals. However, most musicians I know get up on stage and they play songs they wrote years ago only. Like there's nothing new happening that day. They're actually just copy and pasting something that was done a long time ago. And that always dragged on me as a musician because I thought if we're really, the creative class, we should, every show should be unique because we're engaged in this moment. We're creating something now. And so entrepreneurially, There's a similar trap I find myself falling into of, okay, we developed these products like a year ago. Like, oh, wait, we're just still selling the same ones. Like, oh, I just want to go back to the lab and make a bunch of new stuff because it's fun to make stuff. But, by doing too much of that, you accidentally spin up like, launching 10 things at once, and you're surely not going to have, any meaningful marketing penetration behind any of those if, you're resource constrained like we are, like everybody is. So
I had a friend who kind of made a really good analogy one time because he's trying to sing songs. And I'm like, isn't it going to get boring to just like sing the same song over and over again if people like it? I couldn't do that. And he's like, no, it's like creating a really good Facebook ad, like it's just the ad just keeps on producing and producing and producing, and it grows and grows and grows. And I guess the same could be true with like products or ads or anything with the business space. Is you really want to get that traction where it lasts not just a year, but 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, decades.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is why I'm grateful to sell a physical product like coffee that is quantifiably different than regular coffee, because we have a place in the market that we fit in and belong in that has some staying power. Where if I was just selling information or whatever, selling courses, maybe that course gets outdated after 2 years, then and now I have nothing that's defendable and I got to go back to the wheel and make a new thing. Where when you make physical products, you find people that love them, you build a strong brand, strong customer base. At least now I don't have to be so, I don't have as much pressure to keep innovating cool stuff all the time because what we've made has staying power.
Yeah, despite all the challenges of products, inventory management, I love having something physical, something real, and something tangible, and something that people can interact with.
And it's funny now because right now we're doing a podcast. You'd say this is living in the information space, having a physical product. Now I've gone from producing podcasts to now, we're a candidate to sponsor podcasts. It's just funny to see how those two things play together. We still interact with that, information world and work with a lot of, whatever, infopreneurs, if you will. But, the position we work with them is one that I very much enjoy, kind of being on the physical product side of it instead of just the sizzle side of it.
I wanted to go back to your early days, and you've got investors. How far into the business did you go seek investment? What kind of traction did you need to have to prove validity to the idea and the brand?
Yeah, good question. So when it comes to raising money, what I will tell other entrepreneurs and what we followed is investors want to provide gasoline money to take your car from where it is today to the next location. And that's not very useful. Like getting a bunch of gas is not useful if you do not have a vehicle and if you do not have direction. And so for me, I didn't want to take any outside money until, one, I felt confident that, I could take money on and feel good that there's a chance we could, deliver it back and, hopefully multiples to the investors who gave it to us. But then two, that we had taken a lot of risk ourselves by building the car without any outside money so that, when we did invite outside money into the equation, it was just gasoline money that could help, move the car down the road from where we are now to where we want to go. And so what that meant for us is I was fortunate for my last job, had some financial runway when that ended, and decided to take all my chips that I had and put them on the table to start this business. So, a couple 10 grand in savings, that all went to zero. Then it was, okay, now, 401k, bye. So drain that to zero. And then that was really just to get all the products developed and get the brand developed and get the core team put together. And so not only did I have, the product and the vision and the strategy and the brand already presentable where I could give it to an investor and say like, hey, this is real. This is what you're holding is going to be in tens of thousands of people's homes in the next year. You can have a part of that journey with us. That I think helped us raise money quickly, because investors saw that, oh, wow, this is going to happen soon. And this is a situation which I could write a check and I could see impact happen quickly. I mean, even though they're not doing it, with like a impact only in mind, people do like to see things happen. And, in betting on golden ratio is a situation that investors could invest and see things happen quickly. And so I think, a lot of the speed in which we were able to bring in money was around the fact that we had already spent a lot of money without investor money, aka I'd taken the risk. I mean, I'm still our company's largest investor. And, when you lead the way like that, it's easy for other people to follow because there's a leader. And even though investors oftentimes are leaders in their own right, and these are people that have, spare money lying around, they can take startup bets. Oftentimes it's because they started a business themselves that's gone very well. And that's why they have, money lying around where they can do these kinds of things. They enjoy it as a sport. It is their hobby. They love business. Yeah, getting all that prepared beforehand was really, really helpful.
So you had the brand built, the products researched,
and developed.
and developed in the inventory, the first batch of it. Were you selling anything or was it like pre-selling?
Yeah, so we hadn't sold anything yet, but we
Okay.
had set up all the supply chain. We had developed the products. We had early prototypes of the product. So basically the first people we showed the product to was investors because we needed money to launch it because we're in CPG and meeting the minimum order quantities at our co-packer was not something I could do on my 401k budget. Developing everything was within my 401k budget, but the making 100,000 plus servings of our coffee and getting all the raw materials to do that, that was a different financial hurdle that personally I couldn't stomach in my 20s without ever having like a big big exit. So don't come from money, so I had to ask for it. And fortunately, lots of folks who love the game and were like me were happy to chip in and put some money in.
So walk me through that too. Like, how do you line up these meetings and how do you value the business with like no sales? Because when I think of Texas, I think like, hey, where are the sales at before we invest? But maybe you found the Silicon Valley guys here in Austin.
Yep.
So how did you find those guys and girls, I should say, and kind of walk me through that process?
Yeah. Great question. So Austin is a very entrepreneurial community. Also, Austin is a kind of lead with revenue, smaller check community than say the Bay Area where it's, a revenue, maybe like Series B, you think about that. Right now, just, raise like $100 million for you think about revenue. That's, some things that can happen in Silicon Valley that I'm like, how does that work? That is just bonkers. But, for us, I knew several of the people who were our first checks already. And that was not like my first meeting with them was to invest in the company. It was something where I'd known these people for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe we worked together in the past. And, I'd been pretty transparent about the fact when I'd meet with people who had succeeded in business that I was, somebody who looked up to them and I wanted to do something similar. And so when people are in that position, they're happy to give back through, angel investing. And when I say give back, it's not, pure generosity. It's, obviously has like a for-profit, they want to get something back from it, but they really do appreciate being the person who can give the hand up and help an entrepreneur get their start. And in our situation, starting a physical products company, we had a minimum order quantity financial hurdle that we needed help overcoming. And so, that's where they kind of saw their role fit in really well. Valuation. So people who want to raise money for a company, it's better to do pre-sales than post-sales, I say, because once you're in market, now you're held to whatever your numbers are. And if your numbers aren't great at the start, which the chances are they won't be because you're still figuring out what the heck you're going to do, it's better to bring money in when you're not held to the numbers. And early on, you can just kind of get people excited about the vision and they're willing to back that, which is ultimately what they're going to be backing in the beginning anyways. So it's easier to do that when you don't have numbers, where if you're like month 3 into the business and you're talking to an investor, they're like, okay, cool. So like what was, month 1, month 2, month 3. And if you don't have sales growing every month, then you're probably not going to get a check from that investor. So timing those things is really important, because if you go too late and you don't have great numbers, or say you plan to raise later into the journey and you need that money, and then you get to that point down the road and things aren't as good as I thought they'd be, you're going to be in a much harder situation to raise capital than if you had really kicked butt. And so we brought some checks in before we launched the business out of necessity, and then fortunately the numbers were good. Saw like 40% month over month growth at first couple months in business. So that helped us bring in a wave of more checks that then got us adequate runway. And now we're like 15 months in and haven't run out of money yet. So that's good. But the valuation is, if you're starting a business, they had a slide at Capital Factory that I just borrowed from. I wasn't in the room, but a friend of mine told me about it, who's an investor, one of our investors too. He's like, yeah, if you have an idea, your valuation's $5 million. Just doesn't matter what you're doing. If you have an idea, just get a convertible note drafted, be a Delaware C Corp, for a $5 million valuation cap, and then investors, they're only going to write typically 3 sizes of checks, 10,000, 25,000, or 50,000. And, at that valuation, it's easy for them to kind of do the math. Like, okay, like, I really like this. I like this product, I like this entrepreneur. I'm willing to take a big bet. I'm going to place a $50,000 bet. And cool, like in their mind, like, oh, I just bought like 1% of this company and, hopefully it works out. And if it does, the company's going to be worth way more than $5 million and I'll make multiples on my investment money. While also, not diluting the founder too much to make sure the founder's still incentivized to keep waking up and working hard. So yeah, so started there at like 5 million valuation and didn't really get pushed back on that. And yeah, so that's basically, if you want to raise money in startup land, you can do it without sales, and your valuation is going to be between $3 and $5 million. And investors at those prices typically don't push back. I've talked to plenty of investors about this. They're like, oh, 5 million, that's solid. I see these crazy pitch decks, people coming out of the woodworks wanting money, and they've got like a 7 or an 8 million valuation. They haven't done anything yet. Like, we struggle with that. But for 5 million, like, that's within a range that if it works out, we're going to make our money back in some. But if it doesn't, whatever, it didn't matter if valuation was 50 cents or if it was, 50 million, if the business fails, I'm getting $0 back. Right. So that's like a kind of where you strike between the middle of those two extremes, about $5 million.
That whole world's just crazy to me as a bootstrap guy to think you could have $5 million valuation with a brand and an idea, and clearly a brilliant idea, and one that you've been able to connect with great investors about. Mm-hmm. Walk me through your growth strategy, because doing it on Facebook for the past year is hard.
Call it diving headfirst into the shallow end.
Yeah. You break your neck yet, or not?
But my neck hurts, but I'm still standing up straight, so I don't think it broke. But
yeah, I mean, like, do you have any lessons in that and how you've been able to scale up so quickly?
Yeah. And it's been a really simple lesson, and that is just sell more expensive products. Just because it doesn't matter what you're selling. Cost of acquisition on Facebook is probably going to be $50 or more. And it used to not be that way. You'll read stories, you'll read a book that was written in 2017 of getting $8 CPAs on Facebook, running some campaign. That really happened. And that does not happen today. That happened in 2017. And so I had read a lot of books about building an e-commerce business. We've got, like an investor like Noah Kagan. We've got plenty of other really great e-commerce entrepreneurs in Austin involved with our business. And so I trusted their advice and their model, things that had worked for them. And then for us, our coffee is not the most expensive thing in the world. It's definitely a premium priced product. But if you want to go buy a couple boxes of it, the average order value is a little north of $30. And so when you're getting $50 CPAs, that just doesn't work, because you're paying $50 to get a new customer that's going to pay you $30. So just right out the gate, you're losing $20 just cash on cash, and then take into account the cost of actually making the product and shipping it to them, whatever your gross margin is on that. Just add whatever that total cost is to your losses. And so it's looking like, okay, you're losing like $35, $40 every new customer you bring on. And that's a way to lose money very quickly. Just do the math. You want 10,000 people to try your products. You lose $40 each one. Cool. Well, if you have $400,000 to lose, then you can get 10,000 people trying your products. And so that's
you're just giving money to Zuckerberg is what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. We experienced that. The good news with us and how we've been able to keep our business alive and growing is we do have a pretty healthy reorder rate, because it's coffee, which is not something that people skip a day of. And so when we do find people that really love our products, and on Facebook ads, it's 1 in 5 come back and buy again. So it means 80% of people try it, like, not for me. But 1 in 5 of the $100+ billion category of coffee in the US is fine with me. I'm like, oh, that's like, we can definitely build a business 1 in 5, and the lifetime value on our subscribers is several $100s. And so just marketing subscription only, that's where we can afford the $50 CPA or $75 CPA or even $100 CPA, because the lifetime value of those customers is hundreds of dollars, not like $30. And so that's one big shift we made, is stopping advertising campaigns that were pushing first-time sales, just because we knew from a year's worth of trying it that we weren't going to make our money back from that with a 1 in 5 reorder rate. But if we just marketed straight to subscription, we're going to see our conversion rate drop. We're going to see our cost of acquisition go up, but our LTV is like, 8 times higher or whatever. So we can afford for, CPA to double. We can afford for conversion rate to drop in half, and we still, have like way better economics doing subscription only. So that's been one area. And then we've started our food service business. And now there are several coffee shops in Austin where you can buy gold coffee behind the bar at a coffee shop. So that's exciting, just a way to get brands in hands and get people exposed to this without paying Facebook $30-$50 for somebody to try it. And then we have a corporate gifting program as well, where we can ensure that any size list of people will receive like our new flavor, which is a birthday cake gold coffee, the week of their birthday, like with a letter from the company that's sponsoring it. So we've got several companies that have signed up to buy those for their customers. It works great with us because our tea bags are actually really easy to mail. Just put one of them in a regular envelope, put 2 stamps on it, and you can mail it to people. And so we found some really lucrative growth programs on top of just Facebook ads, because Facebook and any sort of digital advertising, if you're working in the performance marketing world, that game is being played on leased land. You're on Zuckerberg's field and he's allowing you to play this game, or you're on Google's field and they're allowing you to play this game. And I don't like that from a business perspective, because if they just change the rules, we could be totally screwed. And so, these offline channels that we, have direct relationships with, and it's more of a traditional sales model. It feels much better to grow our company having those channels, because if Facebook's going great for us 1 month, we'll just put more money into that machine and watch that scale our sales accordingly. Facebook sucking this month, great. We can just, really dial back ad spend, 50, 80%, and we're not going to, lose because of that, because those things just change all the time. Week over week, you have different results on those campaigns. So it's been really helpful to diversify our company outside of just Facebook advertising because, that's out of our control. And I don't want to put the risk of our business succeeding in Zuckerberg's hands. I'd much rather, have more bullets in the chamber than just that one.
You're preaching to the choir, man. Preaching to the choir.
Yeah. You've done a great job here. Having the barbershop and an event space and a way to actually get people in the know and experiencing it. It's
thank you.
It's the way to go.
It's been a hard journey, like any entrepreneur can testament, but it's a lot of fun. And when you do something that you love, the journey is a lot more fun.
Yeah, exactly. I wake up every day and I haven't been bored in years.
Yeah.
That's nothing I complain about. I got other things I might complain about, but boredom is certainly not one of them.
Yeah. Where can people learn more about you or support the company?
Yeah, drinkgoldenratio.com. That is our website. You just type Gold Coffee into Google, you'll find us as well, or Golden Ratio Coffee. My name's Clark Nowlin, Nowlin. You can find me on LinkedIn. Instagram is Clarkin, Clarkin. So I'm on Instagram. Company's on Instagram, Drink Golden Ratio.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you swinging by the office and sharing some nuggets. There's a lot of good nuggets in there, a lot of takeaways. I know our listeners will find a lot of value in this. So appreciate you. I appreciate our listeners dropping those reviews in here, those 5 stars.
5 stars.
And all the 1-star haters can get out of here. Don't listen to another show. You're good to me.
Hey, if you want to try some Beard Brand, just type in the code BeardBrand and you will get 30% off your first order and your checkout experience at drinkgoldenratio.com.
Oh, listen to that. Yeah. Drop Beard Brand in. All right, guys. This has been another Practical E-commerce Conversations with Clark from Golden Ratio. Cheers.
Cheers.
Keep on growing.
Stay golden.